On this episode, brought to you by MaxEffortMuscle.com. Man, what hugs and kicks, Coach?
Hugs and kicks.
I mean, there's a lot of great info in this to really help bring these athletes up, down, sideways, everything. Compete against them, D.
That's right. I think any coach that watches this episode is going to get maybe do a lot of self-reflection about not just what they're coaching the kids, but their coaching style and how they can have a better impact on their athletes.
An amazing story by D to that, right?
Yeah. I think that the story probably took the day, right? I mean, anytime you can get a great story of training with an elite level athlete and have the vulnerability to say how it didn't go well, right? It's a lot easier to tell the story about when we raised their arm for a champion, but to tell time that you got chin checked, that's a little tough. But yeah, I think this is a fun one. This is a fun episode, and I know I got a lot of it just participating.
And finishing it with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Treadway?
Yeah.
All right, let's roll the show. All right, welcome to the Coach's Clinic podcast. I'm your boy, Corey G. That's Coach Mike Deegan, Coach Tyler Treadway, Coach Dustin Myers, and I guess I'm Coach Gregory. What's up?
What's going on?
So first thing I want to bring up, I'm going to start with you, Treadway. What did you think walking away from the first podcast? How did you feel? What was your takeaway?
I was really excited to get to know you guys on a different level. You know, I've known you guys for a while, and Coach Deegan not as long, but read his book and, you know, been kind of around it. And to, you know, hear these conversations, it's something like when you go through these books, it's like, man, I just want to have a conversation with this person. And then now you can actually have the conversation and extrapolate what you want from the conversation.
Great big word there.
Big time.
Dust?
Well, he stole my word. I was gonna say extrapolate. All right. So now I got nothing.
I feel like he looked up the dictionary and was like, I'm going to use that one today on these guys.
He saw me Googling it. That's what it was. He was peeking over my shoulder. No, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway was, you know, obviously with us all being coaches, but kind of in different lanes, I was really even thinking when we were talking the other day just about how so much in life is coaching others. You know, we're coaching our kids, we're coaching our coworkers. And if you can just really understand some basic concepts of how to help people and how to motivate people, then you're going to help improve performance, not just for your team or for your lifters, but for your family and everything else. That was kind of my big takeaway, that really we should all strive to be coaches, whether you are coaching a sport or not.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's this is how I learn best now. This is my platform. So you, at some point, you consume a lot of information, you think, and then you get around people who have similar ideas and similar thought processes, not necessarily the same, but similar, and you flesh some things out, and then what comes out of it can be magic. And I think that's why this show has some potential, right?
Yeah.
Is we're just taking concepts, we're kicking it around, and then you leave with cool takeaways.
Always leave with cool takeaways. And I think that one thing I was thinking is, once again, every time I podcast, you're going to have pinpointed conversations that we're not going to probably have otherwise. We might have fragments of it,
right,
but not this in depth or this locked in or something else is going on. It's like that to me is so valuable.
No
so
doubt.
how can you not take great things away from it?
I'm with you.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up early today was, look, there's going to be a lot of young coaches and old heads that are probably will listen to this. But it's like, I think the ability to bring up an athlete that needs brought up, or potentially bring down an athlete in a positive way that might be head in the clouds too much. Like, how do you, Mike, approach a guy that you know's got potential but is like down on himself, or you're seeing after they make an error the way they operate? I know a lot of your coaching style is, hey, next play. Like, I saw it when I came and watched you, but like, what's your kind of, how do you recognize that and how do you attack it early?
Yeah, I think for us, I'm trying to process the question a little bit, but yeah, this idea of someone who lacks a bit of confidence, but you see a little something. I think just like anything else, it's just leaning into that person a touch, knowing what motivates them and what drives them, and having an understanding that this is a process. So much of this is going to be education, right? So, and I think a lot of times, especially for younger athletes who are up in class, right? However you want to say that, right? You're an 8th grade wrestler, then you go into the 9th grade room for the first time. You get a little overwhelmed at first, but I think just kind of telling them that you're on the path, you're on the pathway to greatness. So don't get so caught up in today's results. Just think about this process, keep moving forward. And I think that's education, it's continuing education, because we are in a results-based society where everyone wants to focus on, like, how do we do? But as we've talked about, a lot of times people, I guess for me as a coach, I don't really care if a guy went 0 for 4 today. I don't really care. It's how they approach the game. So I think getting people that individual to focus on the things that they can control, which is a lot more than they really realize. And then just also talking about the ability that all great athletes fail and recover. And as we
you
talked
think
about
articulating that as a coach, that an 0 for 4 day doesn't change your perception of the athlete? They might put more pressure on themselves about that than you would. I think that expectation could be really helpful, I think.
Right. Like that to me, the higher performers. So tonight, right? Tonight's game 5 of the NLCS, right? Giants and Dodgers going at it. And the Stars may go 0 for 4 tonight.
Yeah.
But to me, that's not – it doesn't almost matter at this point. Like it's the work has been done, right? So now you just have to go perform. And I think just where we are in like how we bring up young athletes, we do focus on, hey, did you go 2 for 3 today?
Yeah.
We go 2 for 3 in baseball and never hit a ball hard.
Yeah,
It's not going to translate. But you can go 0 for 4 and even strike out 2 times – but have 2 really good at-bats,
Line drives right where they're standing.
And so that's just a microcosm of any sport and any kind of performance. But when you get so tied to the results that's just education. That just tells me what happened and where I need to adjust instead of focusing on that process. So I think you can really free guys up by having them lean in to the process, reminding them that the results, they're going to take care of themselves in the long run, right? Whatever you lift today doesn't really matter because if you stick with the process, 10 weeks from now you're going to be there. So that's right. That's my initial reaction, and I'm excited to hear how other guys flesh it out.
Treadway, I know you just kind of ran into this the other night.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the tale of the same player but 2 different stories, right? Definitely our probably most skilled player, definitely probably our best player. So sometimes you have to knock him down. And the best way I found was to just, kind of not ignore him, but when he makes a really good play in practice, you just kind of ignore it and brush it off like it wasn't that important.
Yeah, that wasn't shit.
That
Like
was
that
you
nice
just
shot.
expected him to make that shot.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, what do you have next? And then he's like, oh, maybe I'm not so sweet. But then instill confidence, like, oh, that was a good shot, but like, don't tell him it was the best shot you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would stack the deck kind of against him, right? So if we were doing a 4-on-4, we would put him with 3 of our younger players, and he would have to kind of lead them around him and force him into a leader role where he has to take a step back and understand where he's at and say, oh, okay, well, now I have to kind of bring up these lesser players, and it's going to knock him down a few notches because he's probably not going to win a ton of games in like 4-on-4. Fast forward to the most important game of the season, which was this past week in Granville. Both teams are undefeated. We're battling for a league title. Very important to us. And we were down 2-0, scored with 15 minutes left. We start fighting. I told them before they stepped on the field to start the second half, like, we're leaving here champions. Like, every player that walked on the field, I was like, we're going to leave here champions. And perfect scenario, one-on-one with the keeper. He pushed it wide with 5 seconds left in the game. Missed it, and we lost the game 2-1. And the same player that thought that he was above the team, above everybody else, was on the field bawling because he let his team down. And that's the moment where I
was
knew
he the one that missed the shot?
He was the one that missed the shot. Yep, best player. Missed the shot, and at that moment, I walked over and I picked him up, and he said, "I let my team down," and I said, you're walking off the field a champion because I got what I needed to out of you. Because before the season, you would have said, I don't care about these guys. I'm going to go out and boost my stats and look as good as I can to get discovered for a college. The antithesis of what you want as a teammate, and then now he's bawling on the field because they lost the league title at his foot. And, I can't ask for more. And I said, I picked him up and I gave him a hug, and he was crying on my shoulder. I was like, you're leaving here a champion, man. And it was a really cool moment to see that come full circle.
That's amazing, dude.
Really cool.
That's real cool. D?
Well, I think, kind of the common theme in all this is, if you want to pick a player up, you got to reward their effort, right? Mm-hmm. So you can call it, the process or whatever you want, but we're all really talking about the same thing as rewarding effort. So I think probably, just like you, G, being a strength coach, powerlifting coach, just like me in the gym, we always say we want to reward effort, but at the end of the day, sometimes it is about the numbers because we are tracking numbers,
Sure.
and it's very concrete whether someone is improving or not. So I think it's kind of a fine line when you got a kid that they can do better. You just really need to get them to buy in or whatever. You got to celebrate their effort, but sometimes you have to kind of pick and choose where you do that. And what I mean is, like let's say for example, like today we got to max out on front squat. My guys when they come in. Now, if I got, let's say I got Carson Miller maxing on front squat and he hits 405. And I got another kid that's, let's say he does really good and he gets, but his max is 135.
Yeah.
I can't act real rah-rah about it because there's no way I can disguise from him the fact that he did so much less than Carson Miller.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
like even if that was a great effort and his 135 was great for him, the fact that he is on the rack next to a guy doing 405, that's not the time to celebrate his effort.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find something else where it won't be quite as obvious, so they won't feel like I'm just throwing them a bone to make them feel good. So I think you be strategic about what you celebrate, and then I think also like maybe putting them in a position where they can have some success that might look good in contrast to maybe some of the other studs. And when you celebrate that, it makes it feel more genuine to them. Whether it's something like, all right, well, I know this kid, maybe since he only weighs 100 pounds, he's going to ball out when we do chin-ups for reps. And then that's when I really, hold him up as an example.
Great.
Because then he really did beat the guys that are stronger.
Like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that a lot, dude. You're picking and choosing the spots where it's basically there's no way it could be fake.
Yeah, you don't want them to feel like
yeah.
they're just getting the complimentary blue ribbon.
Yeah, it's feel. It's feel, right? You have a little feel, right?
Whether they tried hard or not. You know what I mean?
think that's awareness of the room or the team or whatever, which is where I think coaches can be great when you can understand that like this isn't going to be as meaningful as that's going to be.
Right.
Where some people think just the blue ribbon's the meaning, but it's really not. Guys can pick up on that.
No, you want them to feel like they really earned your praise.
Yeah.
So
Well, and we just had a max out day too, and with our young group, which I really enjoy coaching the high school kids again. I didn't realize how much I missed it, right? Because I've been coaching adults for so long, and so whenever our guys maxed out, and then we have one guy that just kind of relatively new. I've been friends with his dad for a long time, and he's like 100 pounds or more away from everyone else. But I try to give him like the perspective on like, dude, you've already went up this much. And yeah, we might be hooting and hollering for Drew's 400 or AG's 385 or whatever, but these guys was just what you were because of the process. So that's why I try to explain to him, same thing, lean in, like, don't worry about this number right now. You go catch on these guys if you just keep showing up. And I'm just as excited about his 245 as I am this other guy's 385. But what I like about now where the guys that are the 385 400s process, I'm telling them, today's the day I need you to show up. Because then it's a different kind of vibe, not just from picking you up, it's like now you step up.
Yeah.
And so I think it's in a big moment. And I think I've learned that the most from weights, which then I turned into business. Like, all right, this is the moment where this squad has to come up.
Right.
This is the moment where I got to pull this off the ground. It's the same thing when I walk into this business meeting or this different show or whatever it is. And so I'm not even like, I'm not putting a ton of focus on that, but I'm starting to chirp it now a little bit. Like, well, what you really got for me today, bro? Today's the day we got out of bed to do this. And so it's like, all right, Corey, like, all right, okay. So it's like it's a little bit of a challenge. But then if they don't, so I look at it both ways. They miss it, got to take that. So it's still a positive. Got to take that lift. I would call that lift. When Drew missed 225 the other day, I walked over to Dustin and I said, he smoked 205. He tried 225. He missed it. He goes, there's nothing in between that. Right?
right.
Like, so I let him know, like, and he felt, oh man, I didn't get it. But bro, there's not another take.
All right.
You got to go to the two wheels.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. There's no way between.
So I think that
yeah.
reading the kid and then giving them the other side of the perspective of the failure or the success is really key too. And I'm sure that same thing could apply in any sport. But I've noticed that that's been really helpful with these younger dudes that I'm working with. So
I love that. And as you guys are talking now, you're talking about like the 405 guy or the star on the team. And bumping them back down a notch. I'm sure you guys have all heard the compared to what theory, So
please,
you have a great soccer player on your team. You're like, you may be pretty sweet here compared to what? Like, so if I send you over on the 270 loop and you go play against ABC, you may may not be so great. That 405, boy, that stands up in this group.
Yeah,
but
in another group, it's a 10 rep.
Compared to what?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're sweet compared to what? And I use that for my.
I like that.
I use that for myself, right? It's like, we're good compared to what though? Like, compared to this group or compared to that group. You put yourself in that group, you're not so much. So I think that's a real quick way to humble some people. And I'm not afraid. And I don't, that's not. To me, that's not demeaning. That's not degrading. It's just whenever
it's perspective.
It's perspective because it's the same deal. You made $10 million. Oh, that's big money compared to what? Like
a different circle. They're making it a month.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we can all kind of take that little chin check and say, is that a big deal?
I like that.
I tell you, sorry, go ahead.
Good.
No, I was just going to say that I probably use that with myself even more than I do with my athletes. because I think people, they have a kind of low perception of what greatness is or what eliteness is if they've never really been around it. So maybe whether it's people I talk to on social media or, athletes or, they'll be like, oh, you're in such good shape. I'm like, well, yeah, compared to what? I'm comparing myself to like the toughest guys in the world.
Yeah.
Or they say, oh, you're good at boxing. I'm like, well, yeah, compared to your uncle who never boxed before. You know what I mean? Not compared to Oscar De La Hoya. You know what I mean? So I think that, always having that in your mind, like, yeah, just because you're having a good day, even here in this gym where there's eliteness, doesn't mean anything in the realm of the world. The world's big.
Open it up, baby, right? But I think you said it right. I mean, most people don't have that perspective of what elite looks like and what great looks like. And so I think being in some of those spaces, being in some of those arenas, that's a gift that we can give people, to give them that compared to what. Like we've seen it. So we're not just making this up, right? You've been knocked out. You've been we've had failures like it, and so we can humbly say compared to what, and that's a good chin check for anybody who's getting a little bit big for their britches. Is just a good reminder.
I think anytime you are around a Kyle Snyder, a legit NFL guy, a big-time major leaguer, you go, one, I'm speaking from personal. I was in the wrong line when genetics were given out. The work is there, but it takes that and the fucking work. And then it's like, then you realize like, this is where I think the best perspective for me was with youth sports. I've been around enough pro guys that I realize, not being mean, but your kid's probably not going to the league. And if he is, I probably could already tell.
Yep.
Or I would be very soon. So that's why I think I'm more, and I've seen you at games too, Coach. You're like more reserved because like this is eight years old, like coach pitch. Like we need to chill out. Compared to what at the highest level, that's what that is.
I didn't know who it was, but I came in the gym one day and they're boxing, doing a workout, and I just remember going, if that guy would hit you, it would just hurt. And then someone said it was Beanie Wells. I'm like, okay,
first round draft pick.
So if you're gonna play high level football, eventually you got to tackle that guy.
Dude. Yeah. Which you can't even think about.
Yeah, right. So you're a good football player. Well, come on over to the gym, work out with Beanie, and then tell me how you're gonna form tackle him tonight, right? That's a little perspective.
He gives you a lot of perspective real quick when you walk up on him.
For sure. All I can ever look at him and think is, I cannot believe when he was in high school that there would be safeties and linebackers my size that were tasked with trying to stop him.
Trying is the word.
Trying, exactly. That's why I said trying.
So get carried away at your youth football game and then come watch him and go, it's not that important, right?
I think, though, for coaches that are listening, having both of these in their tool bag is so important, because you're constantly got to read players to see what's necessary, right, Treadway?
Yeah, and I think that's really good, but to take it a step further is knowing when to apply it. So compared to what? So if I have my best player and I say, yeah, that was a sweet shot, but if you were to go to XYZ school, you're like their fifth best player, and I know that's going to motivate him, right? Yeah. And he's going to use that as fuel, but I know I might have another player who's not as good, and I can't use that to fuel him. Because
they'll go.
Yes, he's going to shrink in the moment. If I say, oh, that's cool, but compared to that guy over there who's starting over you, you're not really that tough. And it's knowing when to kind of prod them up. And what Dustin said earlier is picking things that, like when he has a kid who might front squat 135 and he's not really going to celebrate that, but then when he beats the bigger guy on chin-ups, that's when you celebrate it. So I might not celebrate one thing for a player, but I'm not going to necessarily bring them down. But then I'll bring them up on another area that I know will make an impact for them.
Isn't as coaches, I mean, I've heard this phrase too, like you're always alternating kicks and hugs. Like
I like that.
You're kind of giving, you got to kick every now and then, but then you bring them in and hug. And and I think elites.
That might be the title of the episode. That's really good.
When you're dealing with an elite's relative, right? So elite within our programs, like the best player, like we had a first team All-American last year. I whispered his praise a lot more, like meaning I would. Because you also don't just always want to beat people down, right? Like you also, he needs to know that, my gosh, like you just hit 3 home runs in today's game. Now, I may not praise that in front of the group because to me that's not effective, but I'll pull Brian off to the side and just give him a little whisper like, hey, man, like you're doing some special things, bro. Now, where I will shout in front of the group is the guy in batting practice who didn't play today but who's diving all over the place, pushing everybody. That's the guy that I'll stand up in front of the team and say, wow, this guy's effort today really.
He's not going to get praised probably on a game day. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I guess my point is I also want to make sure though that those guys that are doing special things also get their love, because they need that too. They need that recognition. And even though I'm not going to do it publicly a lot of times, you'll make sure you get them in a small space.
I'll do that with some of the guys we got in the crew and say, look, like, you have a chance to be great in this weight class all time.
Yeah.
If you just stay dedicated, like, the things that I'm seeing, if you are still like, still have the push, it's possible. Because I've seen great things happen in my life, maybe not only from athletics, but mostly in the business world, because I just stayed true to that and the belief of it. And like I kept telling, like Will, Matheny, some of these guys that could literally be some like all-time greats. I'm like, it's possible if you guys want it to be. Right now, you're starting to get in the conversation. And so if you want to be the conversation, then that's a different level. But you have to have that perspective. Like, I'm still getting beat, by 300 pounds on my total. And what do I have to do that separates myself to get to that next level? And I think, like, telling them I believe that they can be great. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you go to that guy and say, dude, you might be able to be the top 5 home run guys that, that have ever stepped on this field. Or maybe the top. I don't know, like the situation. There you go. So it's like, I think when people start to think like, well, my coach believes in me. He's telling me if I can, it's really on them.
That's right.
But the reality is I try to pick those spots and let people know I see it, because people had to do that for me, and if they didn't, I believed it anyway. But
well, it's a lot easier to believe in yourself when you hear it from someone else first.
And I know that. And so I think part of it is I wish maybe people said that to me, so I know I need to say it to others, especially if it's true.
No doubt.
Obviously.
So Corey does a really good thing when he coaches, and I don't know if he does this by design or maybe he just, just happens, but he's never told me that I'm going to be a lead at anything like he said. Zach or Will, so maybe that's more telling about me. But
well, you don't want him to lie to you.
Yeah.
You can't lie to the athlete.
I said your beard was elite multiple times, Treadway. Well, no, but I did say that you're the one that possesses the first 405 probably within our original group.
Right.
No question.
Right. But one of the unique things that you do, I think, is, say somebody's about to attempt a big squat, but that's all relative to somebody. So if we have a light guy or someone like myself who's not like a 600-pound squatter, if I'm getting ready to attempt a super heavy weight, Corey's going to come up and get in your ear, and he's going to give you that push that you need to kind of break the mold between good and great. Now, if Zach Matheny's about to go squat 500 pounds, Corey's going to be off doing hamstring curls or something. It doesn't matter. And then, but for me, to relate it to bench is what I'm better at. If I'm benching 225, Corey's not going to come over and get in my ear and be like, all right, Treadway, let's go. He's going to be doing whatever. And I'm going to know that in the back of my mind that when he steps up to you to kind of push you, that's when it's time to flip the switch and be great. And I think you see it on the baseball field as well, when you can kind of – a kid's not getting praise, but then all of a sudden you say, all right, it's time to step up. Something clicks in his brain, and he's like, okay, coach is instilling his faith in me. It's time for me to push the edge and be great.
You think it's easy for those athletes? Obviously, we're older, but it's like the younger athletes probably might not catch on to that. So it's like, but I want that to be what my high school kids see. Like when I am coming over to say, like, all right, it's time to ride, that they switch, it's time to ride. That to me, like, or like when you go to I don't know if you would go to the mound or if you go see guys, but it's like, hey, like I need this out. Like, so it's like, I'm not taking you out. Like, do you ever give any like ultimatums? Like, this got to be like, it's time to like rely on all of this and like get it done.
Yeah. When I'm thinking right now, and I'll answer that, but I'm thinking that, there's a perception of what coaching is. It's the miracle, right?
Yeah.
Like we're going to beat them. Not tonight, boys. They beat them 10 times, but not tonight. Or I don't know how many people have told me that. I got Al Pacino's inches speech from any given Sunday. And they think that's what coaching is. But
I love that speech, by the way.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Sorry, guys. You're like, I got to get it out of my pocket. But it's great. But those are like, once it's usually the micro moments. I guess that's what I'm getting at. And when I think of like kicks and hugs or mound visits, I think Corey, you gave a really good example of kicks and hugs to me when I first started getting back into lifting. The kick was, I was like, hey man, like should I, like if I get this like fat burner, is that going to help? And he goes, hey, all right man, like I know what you need. You need to get in there and just start working out.
I'm pretty sure I said the next level's right down the street, Coach.
Yeah, like just stop it. Like, yeah, that's the kick. Now the hug has been, he comes in like, hey man, so good to see you. Let's go do this. So that the kick, I needed the kick to get in here. I didn't need loved up to get in here. So that was the kick. But it's those micro moments, right? And so that's the same thing in coaching. Maybe that mound visit. I don't know. I don't know if I do a whole lot of like, I need this from you right now, because to me,
some personalities can't respond to that.
Some personalities can't respond it, and I don't know. I don't know if you can't trick the process.
Yeah. If
they haven't earned the right to be in that moment at that time, like that voice for me isn't going to do it. So we talk to our guys a lot about equipping them with strong voice, weak voice, and we got both of those things.
Okay.
So strong voice, so weak voice is going to be there going like, I can't do this. I don't get this. I'm under the bar going, all right, I'm under here. Everyone's yelling at me right now, but this ain't going up. Right?
Yeah.
Like it ain't going up. But strong voice, like that's you have to make a choice to make. Strong voice is saying, I got this, I got this, I got this. So as a coach, sometimes you can get them to try to speak in that strong voice themselves. But I guess going back to the Al Pacino or Miracle speech, I don't know if it's going to be a rah-rah thing for me. Very, very rarely. It's going to be more me trying to get them to tap in to their strong voice and get away from their weak voice.
I like the strong voice, weak voice. That's like I hear Joe Burrow. Try to zero blitz me, give me the ball. Put the ball in my hands.
Yes.
And I believe him. And so do you, and so do you, and so does his team.
Right.
So it's like when you see that, I get chills thinking give me the ball.
Yep.
But
I love that.
But my guess is Joe Burrow has a weak voice too.
Yeah.
He just chooses, and he makes the choice, the conscious choice, to go back to that, because weak voice isn't going to do it. To that moment, instead of go, oh boy, there's a blitz coming. Please, coach, call like something where I'm going to draw and hand the ball off. Like it's not, it doesn't work. But we all have. Like I think sometimes we think elite performers don't have that.
No, everyone does.
They all have it, but they make a conscious choice to lean into that strong, powerful voice.
My strong voice is if I can unrack it, I can squat it.
I love it.
I believe it 1,000%.
That's right.
And all these guys have seen it multiple times. I would miss a weight, jump 50 pounds, and then make it. Because of the strong voice.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, there's power in the strong voice, right? And sometimes as a coach, like when I was growing up, one of my favorite movies was The Little Giants, right? And they talked about just one time, right? And if like Joe Burrow, he might be saying, "Put the ball in my hands, I'm going to win," but he might be thinking in his head like, "Shit, I don't know if I really got this." But then his team's like, "Yeah, Joe, you got this," and then everyone brings you up, and everyone starts to believe, and then you yourself start to believe. Yep. So as a coach, sometimes I'm like, we don't have a chance against these guys. But I'll use that strong voice and eliminate their weak voice, because I'm like, I believe in you. You know, we're walking off the field champions. And then you start to instill it, and then they're like, they use their strong voice, like you said, and then they start to believe in themselves, and then it creates this, community of no weaknesses, no weak voice. And then it, who knows what can happen any given Sunday.
Dude, what I've seen you do a good job of in the not in the mornings, but with the kids after school is like how they rally. Like, because a lot of these kids aren't on the same team. They're on your team or our team at the gym.
We're team gut check.
But they're from all the different, and some of them competitive schools. But if Scotty's pulling 425, it shuts down and goes to that lift. No matter what the weight is, if it's a PR. And I think that is an awesome culture.
Yeah, they can recognize that it's important for sure.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So to kind of piggyback off that, you don't need to be necessarily the one that's picking them up. They're picking each other up.
No, I think it's better when it's their peers.
Way better.
I really do.
Of course. I mean,
but it doesn't start like that. You have to build it like that.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting, which we've done that a lot in our morning crew, but I just hadn't been around your high school guys. And I saw that was something that you had instilled, and they carried it on. And my guys picked up on it. So then because we're, doing similar lifts at the same time, even though different programming, they're going over when your guys are front squatting or my guys are. It's really been awesome to see.
Well, kind of like the Joe Burrow thing, like you'll see a guy get a weight, and then one of the other guys will be like, "Coach, well, I want to try 225 now."
Yeah.
And I'll be like, "Slow down,
load up the bar."
Yeah, they just start trying to feed off each other, which is good. That's what I want, but we got to be realistic about it too.
Yeah.
Do
you have something like that in baseball that can relate?
Yeah, well, I guess I have a question. So first, I've gotten to the point now where I don't know about you guys, like your culture's a bit of a buzzword. You see these things, and you can read a lot, but for me now it's all an observation. So like when I go see D's group, I see that. Like it's not
something you pick up on like that.
Right. And you mentioned how it doesn't start like that. You had to kind of shape that. So can you just go back to how it began a touch? Like, so that the first lift, or is this too far in advance now? I mean, can you go back to how you started creating that environment?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I can a little bit, and then I'm going to wind it into the difference between coaching high school and college athletes. I got a good story for you.
Great.
All right. So I think high school, middle school athletes are very impressionable at that age, right? And most of the kids I'm working with, they're good, but they want to be great, and that's why they're here. But they maybe are not great yet.
Yeah.
All right. So I think, when you're working with kids in that demographic, it's easy to get them excited. You start this whole process of rewarding their effort. They see the tangible results, whether it's they're starting to get some muscles now or they'll be able to put some more weight on the bar or whatever. And you just kind of create this hype atmosphere. And I think, especially with, boys that age, or I should maybe just say boys and girls, athletes in general that age, they're taught to be reserved, sportsmanship, they have to try to, whereas I'm letting them kind of like run wild and be animals. I always tell the parents right off the bat, and I figured it's better for them to hear it from me than to see it on the video. Say, hey, look, just so you know, I know your son's 12, but I'm going to cuss at him. If he wants to cuss, I'm going to let him cuss.
There's rap music going in the gym.
Yeah. We're going to listen to Wu-Tang.
That's what it is.
I want them to feel and operate like grown men, and that's going to be part of it. You know what I mean? So if I figure that way, at least they hear it from me right then. Then when they see a video one time and their kids like, come on, get this fucking weight. They're not like, oh my God, what are they learning over there? They already know. So
you signed up.
You signed up for it, exactly.
Well,
so,
and that sport, which is mostly wrestling that's coming here, is grimy and hardcore, and like that's part of it, D. I don't think it's that far of a stretch.
No, it's not. But when you start them young like that, and they're very, like I said, they're that good, they're trying to get great, we've created that culture, they buy into it. I had a little bit of a kind of culture shock when I started working at the collegiate level, working at Ohio State, because here now you're dealing with all kids that are not kids, they're men, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. A lot of them, they're the best of the best. They were the number one recruit in the country. They've grown up. They've always been at the top, at the pinnacle. And wrestling's a different sport where, when you're out there, it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
It's not that same kind of team vibe that you maybe have in the dugout or in the locker room for football. So I remember when I first started training those guys down there, none of them are yelling. They're just, focused on what they're doing. They're not paying attention to the other guy or whatever. And I was like, man, I got to try to fix this. I wanted to feel like my high school weight room. How is my high school weight room more hype than Ohio State?
More intense.
I felt like I wasn't getting enough intensity out of them. And I'm going to kind of mix a couple different stories here just because I think it's relevant to it. But so I remember the first preseason where, Tom Ryan handed me the reins for the college group. Before this, I'm working with Reese Humphrey and a couple other guys. And with those guys, I could just train with them and I could get out what I needed out of them by training with them. Now I got 2 groups of 20 back to back at 6 a.m. in the preseason. I can't really train with them. I got to just be strictly coached. I'm like, all right, well, so I got to create this hype atmosphere. I told him, I said, all right, we're going to be dogs this preseason. We're going to bark, blah, blah. So I had him, I was trying to get these guys to bark, literally bark.
That's cool. It's a great story.
And I remember, I think it might have been, I can't remember if it was Keyshawn or who it was, but one of them looked at me, they're like, gut check, we ain't barking. They're like, this ain't football, we ain't barking. And it was the same year, Zeke Elliott and them were doing
Yeah.
I was trying to get that to catch on. They were basically like, fuck that. And I'm like, all right, I'm racking my brain. All right, I got to go back to just maybe individually, zoning in on these guys and trying to get them motivated like that. So this would have been, I guess it was probably Keyshawn's freshman year. Now you guys have met Keyshawn.
Yeah.
And now me and him have gotten tight over the years. But when he first came in, he's a real quiet guy. Top overall recruit in the country.
Yeah, he don't say a whole bunch.
Don't say a whole lot. He's opened up a little bit more to me over the years. But now I don't really know the kid, but he's, a great athlete. He's actually kind of good at weightlifting because he'd done some CrossFit in high school. So he actually had more of a good weightlifting base than most of these kids when they come in. Most of them, their dad's just been making them do 10,000 push-ups a night since they were 4 or whatever. So
sounds about right.
Yeah. So anyway, it's preseason. I've been on him. I'm I kind of zeroed in on him as one of the guys. All right, if I can't get the whole crowd to bark, I'm going to be in Keyshawn's ear.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get this kid motivated. I'm going to get him super strong, So we're getting ready to max out on back squat. And I'm in his ear, you got to get this fucking weight. Blah, blah. I'm just on him, barking on him, blah, blah, blah. And he's just, dialed in, focused, not even looking at me. He gets under the bar. He takes the rep. I can't remember what's on the bar, maybe 365, maybe 405. It was a lot of weight for a 141-pound kid. He's coming up, and he lose control of it, kind of almost stutters back. Luckily, I was right behind him. I underhooked him and caught him, put in the rack, but I was shocked because he's normally a kid that has such great form and control, and I couldn't believe it. And I just looked at him, I said, what the fuck was that? And he sat there for a second. He goes, "It's you."
Oh!
Hey, wait, it gets better. He goes, "It's your voice." He goes, "I can't stand you yelling at me. Your voice in my ear. I'm trying to concentrate. You're telling me to like break the fucking bar. I just want to do my squats. You need to leave me alone." Like, and I remember I went from feeling like I'm coach of the year to like, I'm like, oh my God, how? Like it was like a. It was
he
like
said, "You're coaching me wrong."
I was coaching him wrong, and it was a big epiphany for me. Number one, I got to coach these athletes different.
Yep.
They're all different, and it made me realize like I need to be more self-aware of the feedback. Like in my mind, I thought I'm getting this guy focused, and he's trying to tune me out.
But what a great learning experience. And you
was
guys are obviously still friends. He comes to the gym when he's in town. He's a great guy.
Yeah. We became closer through it. You know what I mean? And I learned how to coach. And the funny thing is, the way I learned to coach him is I just have to like talk shit to him. I'd be like Colin Moore can do this. You can't do this. You know, like I got to like degrade him a little bit. And that's for whatever reason, like just talking smack to him. That's what motivates him.
Wow, what a great story.
Yeah.
And I mean, it should make other coaches think, am I coaching this guy the right way?
Yeah. If you're not getting what you want out of them, maybe it's you. Maybe it's not them.
Well, and I think Matheny's such a great example because Matheny's such a good lifter. And he can hype himself up, but if it's coming from out, he was.
It's a distraction.
He was a distraction. He would rush the lift, and maybe not as much now, but earlier in his career, and he would miss some lifts. I'd seen him make in the gym like all the time, and I'm thinking, I'm getting on him too much. I know it. Like that's not what he needs from me. He needs me to make sure his wraps are tight and say, yo, this is just like every day at the gym, bro. No big deal. And then there's other dudes, and I like this. I need motherfuckers to get in my face and go, what do you got today? These people came for the show. What they got the tickets. Like, did they come to see it? And I also like this part, right? I like the people that are there to see me not win because I want them. I want to step on their throats, bro.
Right.
Like I love that. So I think that if I can get that, but not everybody's motivated by that, and that's one thing that I definitely knew that was early for me. But it's like if I can grab that from somebody, then I can really twist it in a good way because then I know it's going to light up something big.
Man, there's so many different directions I could go here. Because
right?
one, the biggest thing is, I think the higher level of the performer. Well, I shouldn't say. I say for anybody. Really, it's you have to know the person, right?
Yeah.
It's not about you as the coach. Like I think that's the first thing you could. So I think sometimes like
that story was amazing.
I love your vulnerability. I love that story because it was. But that was you at the beginning. It was this is the environment I want, but it doesn't matter what you want because eventually Keyshawn's going to be in there going nose to nose for a national championship against somebody else, and you aren't in the picture. So my job as a coach is to get them ready for that moment and to take a back seat. And the other thing I want to say real quick is I love the analogy of jungle tigers and zoo tigers. And in baseball.
Oh, he got all kinds of these. Let's go, Mike.
And what you can stick with me. I'll use the baseball analogy, but then I can kind of weave it in a little bit. But baseball has become a very training-centric sport. Throw a ball as hard as you can against the wall, hit a ball as hard as you can. That to me, that's a jungle tiger. Like that's us feeding you, telling you like you're good, right? But in a game, it's a zoo. Like there's uncontrollables. Things are coming at you, and so do you want to train in a jungle or do you want to train in a zoo? And you have to counter that a little bit, right? If you live your life only in the zoo, if your environment is only insane all the time, jungle animals don't live very long, right? Like you're going to get eaten.
I was lost for a second.
He brought it back.
I'm sorry, I flipped it. But yeah, if you're in the zoo, you're not going to get your growth either, right? Yeah. That's not where you're going to get. You're not wild enough. So, anyways, yeah, it's
Monday
the zoo
through
the
Wednesday is our jungle here.
That's right.
And Thursday, Friday is the zoo.
That's right.
And that's why I tell guys, make it through Wednesday. Show up through Wednesday. Make it through. Step up. Compete. Get to Thursday.
Yeah, and then you can.
And then you're doing a little pump work, a little accessories,
we'll take care of you.
Talk a little stocks in between, like. But I'm like, I want everything you got those first 3 days. That's why I set it up that way.
Right.
And that's what I keep preaching.
Yeah, and to be a wrestler, you got to be in the jungle. I'm sure a lot, right?
The scramble is everything.
You got to be. You got to be in there quite a bit. So yeah, I butchered that analogy, but I think hopefully you can take away, right? Like. If you're in the zoo, it's comfortable, it's easy, you can feel kind of good about yourself, but it probably isn't going to lead to elite level performance.
Does being tame give you any type of progress?
I would just say like I like your analogy of the Monday through Wednesday.
Yeah.
I think we at some point we now know recovery is really important, sleep and those types of things. So you have to have some controlled environment. It can't always be wild.
Yeah.
But I think as a coach, you're kind of always thinking about that. Am I making this too safe? Are we playing safe and small?
Yeah.
Or are we being too aggressive? And maybe that's what Keyshawn was saying. I don't need this right now. I don't need this in this space. So, anyways, I love that story because it's so applicable. But because kind of goes back to me of you better know your people and better keep it a bit.
Dude, I can imagine when he said that, D, how you probably felt.
I felt this way. No,
it's like a punch in the face.
I mean, on many levels, because I was thinking in my head, like this kid doesn't even like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want you to like me.
Yeah, so no, it was just a good learning experience for me for sure.
Great story though. Well, and I think that sometimes when I'm real direct about the accountability, because I say like where the fuck are you at? Mm-hmm. And then there's no one that can say, well, you weren't here because I was.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But I think that especially if somebody has potential to be great, and I see that a little bit, I try to bring them back on that line to say, look, like if you want to be great, like here, I would even say like, I want to be great. I don't possess what you possess. Mm-hmm. But I'm possessed the part maybe you're not willing to do. But if you are willing to do it, then you can get there. Mm-hmm. And I think like that's part of that, like, you know, it's like that teeter of like you're challenging them, but you're letting them know like I know what it looks like, but then I might not possess that actual physical skill to take it there, but you do. If you can you know, I don't know. So I think that's also there's so many different ways that you're trying to steer people, and I'm trying to read that. Or like the other thing is I think everyone has so many things going on outside of baseball, lifting, wrestling, like picking up and knowing your people to say like, it probably ain't baseball today.
Yeah.
It's probably something else. They need Mike, my friend, my coach, not the other guy.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't need to feel bad about missing today's lift because we've got things going on, right? So
there you go.
You can lean into
attendance. Attendance was the win that day.
That's it. Yeah, I'm really proud that you showed up today, man. You got a new baby at home and didn't sleep, and you got in here today. That's awesome. So just do something light. It's great to see you, right? Not push.
Was these things natural for you guys? Like, do you feel like that awareness of picking up on personalities, you know, the needs of the player? Because we're talking about a lot of factors. What do you think, Troway?
I think at first, kind of like to piggyback off what Dustin said, you just want to be liked, especially stepping in as an assistant coach. I came in, the coaching staff was 4 people last year. They lost a coach, and then I stepped in and filled a hole, and I felt like I had to make up for a year. So I felt like, I'm stepping in this new environment. These kids are probably better than most of the kids I've ever coached. The expectations are much higher. I want them to like me as a person, and I was probably too much of the rah-rah, oh, my gosh, you're so good. You're the next Cristiano Ronaldo. And then, you know, that's not the way to go about it. So then it's a lot of self-reflection of, okay, maybe I need to coach these guys a little bit different. And then it's picking out the individual players and knowing what they need and what makes them tick. And that's knowing your players on a personal level because, like, you know Keyshawn on a personal level now. If he was just another face in the crowd, you would just continue to do what you do. You don't self-reflect and think, oh, I need to change how I coach this guy. You're just going to keep doing what you do, and that's ego-driven coaching, right? You know, Corey, if you're just always like, you know, Zach might get into his own head and can amp himself up for a lift, you'd know that you need to take a step back. But Corey, the motivator, thinks, well, I need to still, you know, maintain face and still hype him up. But that's ego driven, and that's not what you're about. Same with you, coach. Like, you know when to pull back and when to push the pedal. And I had to take a step back and look where I was at and think, okay, this isn't about me. This isn't about Tyler Treadway, the coach. This is about the team and how I'm going to influence them, and then knowing where to pick my battles and when to kick and when to give hugs.
Did you ever have a moment like what Dustin talked about, Mike?
Never that extreme. Never that extreme.
No one tried to punch you in the face.
No, not to that extreme. But I think a lot of this is just reps, right? Like you get into it thinking you can change the world as a coach, you can do this or that, and then every now and then you get that punch in the face from a guy that makes you step back. I don't know. I think probably if I have any gift of coaching, is probably ability to connect with different people from different walks of life. So I think while you asked if it was natural, I think I would compare it for me a little bit like that naturally gifted athlete who's really strong. Like, I think I always, because of the way I was raised in the environment that I was raised in, I was just around a lot of different people. So I think I think I'm overly sensitive and overly empathetic to what's going on in other people's minds. I mean, you guys can probably sense that here. I'm worried. I don't want to hold your time up. I don't make sure you're late. When you guys are lifting, I go in the corner almost. I try to just stay away. So I'm aware of what other people are thinking.
You put yourself in other people's shoes well.
Yeah, and I think that's a gift and a curse, right? Because it also makes me, a little, I would say a little reserved. So I always say, I joke and say I'm a chronic undercoacher. Like I try to create an environment and then get out of the way. That's kind of my philosophy. So no, it's not. I think a lot of reps have gotten better where you realize that I need to pour into the individual. They're the one performing. But I will say, as a brag, that I think that's probably the area where I'm most natural is being able to connect with people. So
yeah, it's good. D?
Yeah, I think it wasn't very intuitive for me at first, and I think maybe part of that is because, one of my strengths as a coach, I talked about in the last episode, is that I want to lead by example. I train with the athletes. Well, because of that, then I was viewing everything through the lens of like what I like to do, what I want to do, how I like to train, and then I was just applying that to them when I had to it took me a while to realize, all right, I need to coach them not the way I want to train, but the way they need it. I need to look at their individual needs versus what exercise that I like to do or what conditioning I want to do that day. So I think that was just like a long process of like, even though I'm still doing it with them, it has to, like right now, I was just telling someone earlier today, actually I was telling Lance, I said, I still do, heavy upper body twice a week, but it's centered around Colin's training schedule. So like my bench program or whatever I'm doing that week, it revolves around what Colin needs. So is that ideal for me? I mean, I guess whatever I do is ideal for me at this point because I'm not elite or competing in anything. But, so rather than kind of making it kind of centric around myself, it's centered around the athlete. And that took a while to get an understanding of.
Well, I think too, the agility around like your personal needs, because a lot of guys aren't like, for instance, Mike, you're not doing shortstop drills. So, I mean, like, that's where we have a little bit of a unique difference, right? Where we're in it with the guys, like, actually in the skill day to day. So it's a little different than most people that are probably listening that are coaching football, or you're not with the pads on no more. It's different. And even though we might not be able to it'd be like you wrestling versus training with them, right, D? It's different. So I try to think like, all right, I know what I need. And then if I see somebody not progressing properly and they're bringing something to me, I'm open-minded to say, let's try it. But only if you're actually doing the system. So if you come to me and you're saying, my deadlift's not getting better. So Mike comes to me, my deadlift's getting up better. Mike, you front squatting 4 times a week against the bands? Well, I'm only getting 2. Well, we're not changing shit. Okay?
If you pour yourself into this.
You pour yourself into it, and then you come to me because I'm here doing it.
Yep.
So then it's like, then I'm open because I want us to get better,
right,
and you to get better. But I'm not going to, like, if your accountability and your work ain't there, how can I take that serious? And I'll go right at it like that too, because I want people to know, like, I'm a very nice guy, but I'm serious about results and about what I do. And if you're going to challenge the system to make it better, let's make it better. But the reality is, unless we're challenging it through the process, then how can I go to that? Like, oh, you know what? I'm making too many errors. Well, dude, you're missing the extra workouts. You're doing this. Like, I don't know. That's something I have a hard time being nice about.
You just ride the wave then, right?
Yeah.
So every time we're just going to change the program every 2 seconds then, right? Like
we'd be changing it constantly.
Exactly.
It has to evolve, not change when somebody's not putting the work ethic in.
And that's what I admire about what you guys do. I mean, you guys being in the fire with them. If I had one regret, if I could give a young coach any bit, like whatever, if I could put on a billboard, I'd say keep working on your craft. Keep working on your craft because – I couldn't. I'm 43. I couldn't play shortstop like a 22-year-old. But if I was staying in shape and staying with it, I still could feel things. I could still get an understanding, as you were saying. Like you can get a sense as to should they feel taxed today or not. But I don't know. If you care about your craft, I think you should at least continue to work on it.
Yeah.
I always say I've gotten to become a much better hitter as in the third base coaching box than I was ever in the batter's box, right? Because it gets easier. Like you can sit back and just wow, why don't you swing at that? But you forget what it's like to stand up there and have someone throwing an object at you at 90 plus miles an hour. It's a little, but it's really easy from the third base box to give suggestions. So if you can keep beating on your craft, even if you can't do it at the same level as a top lifter or the top quarterback or whatever, at least you have some kind of understanding and empathy for it. So, but I really admire watching you guys do that because you're in the fire with them, right? They see you fail, they see you kick a ground ball, whatever. Like they watch that, and it humanizes things as well.
I agree. I think that's been one of our main differences between us and everyone else, D. Honestly, this whole time. I told him, like, when we first started training, because I was a few years ahead of D because when he was still at Ohio State, I was like, look, man, if we're doing shows, we're doing meets, our clients can feel that discipline. Yes. We are truly leading by example, right? And as you get older, it's going to be harder to compete with the younger dudes and all that. But when they see you, it's all the weight's all relative to the work. That's what I try to tell you. Like, we are getting just as excited for your 300-pound squat as we're getting for Will Green's 605 because it's still putting out.
That's right.
So I think actually that advice of no matter if it's football, whether it's baseball, that if you're showing the drill, but it's crispy, you ain't doing maybe 1,000 reps of it, coach. But if you're in there showing it, patting it, bang across the diamond, does the kids go,
I think so.
I think they do, right?
I think so. I do. And, you know, my dad was he loved the fighters, loved boxing. And when they got done fighting, they'd hug. It would drive my mom crazy. She's like, how can they hug if they beat each other to death like that? and what I would say is those are only two, my dad would say, those are the only two people in the world that know what went into that fight tonight. That died, and you know, what they sacrificed, the nerves. Like, nobody else knows exactly what that feels like except for those two warriors. And the same thing holds true when you're training with them, right? Like, they know that you had to get up at 3:15 in the morning, and they know that you had to put out today. Like, there's something that you can't buy there. Like, that's something you can't talk that into existence.
It's an intangible.
That's a feel, right? Mm-hmm. So, anyways, I'm wishing I would have taken more ground balls, and maybe I would.
Well, and that wasn't a knock that you're not. It was more about an awareness of, like, in our coaching, we're able to still take part in that. But Dustin said a bunch, like, I can't go and wrestle Keyshawn.
No.
But I can battle him in bench press.
Right.
So you know what I mean?
And even, you know, I'm kind of getting to the point, most of the guys, I can't really battle them that much in the weight room anymore. Yeah. But the one, and me and Lance talked about this earlier today a good bit, you know, the place I can still battle with them and hang with them is when we do the conditioning work.
There you go.
Yeah.
We do the running and stuff. And we were talking about conditioning, and we were talking about competing and a bunch of other things. And I said, well, you know, my perspective is different because, you know, you've been elite in wrestling, you've been world champion in fighting, now you're world champion in jiu-jitsu. I've competed in plenty of things, but I'm not elite in anything. And he said, you're elite at being a sicko.
Me too.
And I was like, yeah, so it's kind of the same thing. So whether we're talking about that one rep when you unrack it, or whether I'm, you know, running at Hoover Dam with, you know, 3 very elite athletes yesterday, I'm beating them. And I'm willing to, you know, go to the dark place to beat them. And I think they respect it. And then kind of going back to our talk earlier about that strong voice, you know, weak voice thing. There's a concept I talk about a lot with my guys. We just call it the deep water. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the deep water concept, right? And actually, you know what? This brings me back to rap music.
Please.
Yep. There's a line, and I think it's an old Mos Def song, and it says, "Every man gets scared when prepared for confrontation." Yeah. And you think about that. Don't matter how big of a gangster rapper you are. Yeah. Every man gets scared when prepared for confrontation. But it's what you do with that feeling. Mm-hmm. And so that deep water feeling is like when you are doing something where that small voice, the weak voice in you, out of a survival mechanism, tries to tell you to stop. Mm-hmm. Tries to tell you, don't take this weight. It's too heavy. It's going to crush you. You just have to have a strong voice that's louder, that recognizes that, okay, the weak voice, this is maybe a part of my psyche, but this isn't me. And the strong voice maybe is not all the way you either, but you have to make sure that it is stronger than the weak voice and you can overcome it. And, you know, when you're in that deep water, you have to be cognizant of that battle is happening and watch this voice say that the weak voice doesn't control me. Mm-hmm. The strong voice, you know, I'm not scared. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to keep running, and I'm going to beat Keyshawn in these sprints just to show him.
Well, when Cole was rapping me for my last big squat, I'd been out of competition for almost 3 years. I'm taking something I'm pretty sure I can make. Mm-hmm. But as the weak voice was coming in, Cole's rapping my knees. I'm talking shit. I'm like, give me all the heat, Cole. Give me all the heat, boy. Give it. And Trey was capturing it actually more like intimate than I thought, like documentary style. And you can see me hats down. I'm staring at the rap, and I'm telling. And every time Cole's rapping it, I'm saying, "Give me more, give me more." Like I'm thinking in my head, is the weak voice is trying to say, "Gee, you jumped 80 pounds." My voice is saying, "No, give it all to me." I was gonna go 700. I went 680. That's me being concerned. Like, and so you see that battle, and I'm as watching it after. I'm like, I can see it happening, right? Because I'm pushing it out.
That's right.
As soon as it tries to enter, I'm taking it and pushing it out. And I think it's the same thing of when you're coming up against a good pitcher, you got a good guy against across the mat. It's all that. It starts to creep in, and you got to have that ability to push it back out to give yourself the best opportunity to be successful.
I love and another. I'm smiling like thinking about this because I'll quote another rapper story, not rapper, but rapper actor, Will Smith. You ever see? He said, I don't have any great gifts. He goes, but all I know is if we get on the treadmill beside each other, you're going to get off before me.
Yeah.
I
don't know. He knows that about himself.
I'm going to stay on there longer. I'm going to be on that treadmill longer. We'll just walk. I'll look at you the whole time, but you're getting off before I do.
I've saw that quote before, and when I read it, I thought I can beat Will Smith on the treadmill.
Let's set it up.
As should you, D. You should think that.
I'd love to see that battle.
Hey,
I wouldn't bet against you.
So think of the most basic and common and easily accessible example that why do lifters yell lightweight? They know the weight's not light. You yell lightweight to trick yourself.
To think it's going to be light.
Yes, that's your strong voice.
Yeah.
Lightweight. Every lifter does it.
Yep.
My grandpa used to tell me right before I would take like a bench or whatever, and he would say, if you think for 1 second that you're not going to make this, there's no way in hell you're going to make it. So why would you ever think that? Cool. And he would also say in golf, because it's similar, right? If you're thinking about the motion too much, he'd be like, if you think you stink. Like in that, like if you're overcomplicating what you've already planned to do.
Yep.
I've already made these weights. I've already put in the time.
Yep.
It's that overthought, because a lot of times the people that overthink stuff are the ones that shit the bed.
That's right.
I want to just react. Right? Batting is a great example of that.
That's right.
And I've told AG of this a lot. He's real methodical on the mound. But as soon as he gets in the batter's box, it doesn't apply the same way, I don't think. Meaning, like, you have to react because you don't have time really to overthink. Now, when you're thinking about the curveball you're throwing, the spot, it's a little different. That's just my perception. I'm not a baseball coach, but those are two different kind of setups.
I still think so. To go kind of to bring that us all full circle back to jungle and zoo. I mean, so when you're in the zoo, like you can think about your grip and this or that.
Yeah.
But now we're on the mound. You're now in the wild. So now it becomes about I got to get this guy out. Like let me look. So I got to forget about all that. So, anyways, that'll be a nice part in his evolution.
Yeah.
Is, okay. Yeah, that's cool. You in the bullpen, you can think about all these things. But you got to flush it when you're in the jungle, and it becomes about competition, about me getting you out, and really, and so even in baseball, those guys, like, they could be cerebral as they want, but I would say 9.5 out of 10, because that's not in every case. They get really, really, really Neanderthalish, and they're ready to roll. And in that moment tonight, you'll watch. They're just trying to get that guy out in that moment. All that training allows them to do that.
A 90-mile-an-hour fastball, you can't really think about it.
Right. But that's right. But it's lightweight. It's all those things. It's a simple thought. They just give themselves, see the ball, see the ball, see the ball. I've heard hitters talk about. They just say, see the ball. And maybe that's their
cue.
It's their last cue. Lightweight, whatever. But it's funny. Even in a sport like baseball, it's not all that much different than lightweight, or I'm not getting off the treadmill, or whatever. It's still kind of the same. Yeah. It boils down to the same thing.
Man, some good info, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
So coaching kind of always brings me back to my favorite meme.
Okay. This is amazing. Continue, Trevor.
So it's based on one of my favorite cartoons growing up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you might have seen it. But it's a picture, and it's got Master Splinter, and he's got 4 baby turtles next to him, and he's leading the way and bringing them. And it's kind of like you say, you bring your guys in the gym, and you're leading the way, and you're beating them and everything. And Corey's leading the way because we were all young lifters when we came, and Corey was always the strongest. Yep. But now Corey recognizes the second evolution, the top and the bottom picture of the meme. The top picture is all of the turtles grown up, and Master Splinter's older, and they're leading him, right? Yep. So now Corey brought us in when we were young and not good lifters, and he built us all up because he's a great coach, and he built us to where we're now leading Corey. And
Thank you, Chad.
And Dustin, you had your guys when they weren't strong, and you were out there beating them, and then now they're beating you, and they're leading you along the way. And, Coach, you did the same thing. Yeah. You brought these kids in as freshmen, and you showed them the way, and then now they're seniors, and they're kind of leading you to where they want to take you.
That's great.
It's deep.
That is deep. I think that's a great way to close it up, Treadway. The Teenage Mutant Ninja
closer
Turtle
right
closer
here.
is so
Mic
good.
drop.
Well, this coaching staff is elite. I'll tell you that right now. I'm Corey G, Coach Mike Deegan, Coach Tyler Treadway, Coach Dustin Myers. This is the Coaches Clinic. Share it with your friends. Give us a 5-star review. And if we keep dropping stuff like this, fellas, like
We got a shot.
we do got a shot. That's we just want the opportunity.
We're in the ball
getting the
games,
reps
right?
right here. We're coaching ourselves. All right, we're out. Peace.